The goal in your life is not to figure out how to be comfortable in your mental prisons, but to realize that you have the keys to set yourself free. Yes, it's Tim Shurr, and today we have an exciting, mesmerizing guest with us. I've been excited about this one. Geoff Mclachlan is here. Geoff, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Tim. Super excited to be here, man. I'm really excited. I mean, I love what you do, and I've actually been listening to your podcast now for a little while, and the opportunity to be on it is like, it kind of blows my mind. It's awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate this. I've been looking forward to this. So Geoff and I met in Detroit, Michigan, and he was speaking at an event that I was attending, and he blew me away. And I thought his energy, his games, his, all the stuff that he puts together into his programs were just mesmerizing. And I thought, I got to get this guy on the program. So Geoff is, let me tell you, just because you're probably meeting him for the first time, he is really great at team building and helping adults to have fun. He's the founder and CEO of Professionals at Play. You can check him out at professionalsatplay.com. We'll have all his info in the notes. And he's been a professional speaker and trainer for about 13 years now. I think you've done 800 paid speeches and have worked with over 600,000 people. That in itself is amazing. Yeah. And today I'm hoping that you can share with us some of the things that you've learned from getting adults to be like kids again and to play. So let me ask you, like, you've been helping, well over 500,000 people learn to have fun again, because it seems like as adults, we get old and crusty. We stop playing, we stop making new friends, we stop, having new adventures, and we just start to watch more TV and sit on our butts more. So how are you bringing the joy back into, our lives?
Well, that's a great question. I think that everybody wants to have joy in their lives. They want to have joy and happiness. And I think when we're kids, it's easy because we don't have the stresses of everyday life. There's no taxes, no job. You got to go to school, bummer, for 9 months out of the year, but you got recess for most of it. And it's a chance to interact with people. And then all of a sudden things change once you hit that post-college years, when you actually start to go out into the workforce, because now it's like, okay, put your childish things away. Now it's time to grow up and be an adult. And a lot of times there's a big transition that happens where people will actually stop playing as much. And because they're like, I got to focus on the serious things. Well, for me, I take play very seriously. And the big thing is that play keeps you young. I can't remember who said the quote, that I think it's out there, that we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
Ooh, I love that. That's really, really good. Well, Walt Disney built a park around the idea that we want to stay young. It's for kids of all ages, and you can be 70 years old and, and still be a princess. And that's what it's all about, having fun. And, when we were young, we would run and dance and play and swim, or we would call it recess. Now we call it exercise, like it's suddenly a bad thing.
Now you have to do it.
Yeah. And so I love your idea of how I love that quote, right? If you are, if you're gonna, say that quote again.
We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
That's right. It was tripping me up because I kept thinking of another quote that says, are you growing old, or are you older and growing? And it's the same kind of thing. Yeah. Are you bringing that childhood joy and wonder into your adult life? Because, as kids, we don't have a lot of power over what happens, but as adults, we do.
Right.
And a lot of times we think that we don't have that power. And it's unfortunate. So a lot of my clients feel like they're having a second childhood now, because they're choosing to.
Oh man, choice is huge. I mean, that's a big thing. That's one of the things that I talk about. Whenever I play with adults, whenever I do play with adults, I always give adults the chance to say, I don't want to do that, because it depends on who I'm with. If I'm with a group of people, and as we get older, there's injuries that happen.
Sure.
If somebody's got a bum hip and I say, hey, we're going to play tag, and they
Yeah.
go, wait a minute, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I said, well, okay, let me explain the rules first, and then you can choose to or not to.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, if you've ever played tag, which a lot of us have, I just learned recently that tag has a meaning. TAG is touch and go.
Oh.
So you touch and go. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Well, let's play tag. And there are so many versions of tag. There are hundreds of versions of tag that you can play that don't require running. And so if you can play tag that is slowed down a little bit, but still has the element of excitement, you would not believe when you get adults playing tag. It's like the screaming and joy and laughter. You'd think axe murderers were chasing adults as they're playing tag. It's hilarious. They completely let go of everything else, and they're in the moment completely, which is one of the beauties of play.
Well, I watched you do it firsthand. You took a group of people who were, professionals and kind of there to learn how to grow their business and stuff. And you got people into a group, and some were excited and some were nervous and some were cautious. Yeah. And then within a few minutes, you had everybody laughing and moving and touching each other, high fives and physical contact and all the stuff that's important, that matters so much, that we tend not to do. And it was magical. Yeah. So it reminds me of that. Do you see Tim? Oh man, my brain is on pause today. I've got a delay in my own brain. Too many tabs open in my own brain. Who's Tim? Who's the guy that plays the Santa Claus?
Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Tim. Yes.
Yeah, Tim Allen.
Tim Allen. Thank you. Tim Allen. Woo! High five. All right. Awesome. Between the two of our brains, we're going to make something out of this.
This is good.
And so, do you remember in the Santa Claus 2, where they're at this work party and everybody is having a boring time, and then he comes out and he starts giving presents from their childhood.
Oh
right?
My God.
And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I love this when I was a kid. And they're playing toss across and all these different things. And all of a sudden the party comes alive with people playing. We want that. I think as adults, we have ADD, adventure deficit disorder. We're just not having enough fun.
Oh, so true. Especially in the workplace. Think about it. You go in, you punch a clock, you time in, time out, and you're there for how many hours? Now, how many of those hours are you actually productive? How many of those hours are you actually engaged with what you're doing? Is it you sit at the computer and you're typing things, but in your mind, you're out in Fiji on a beach somewhere having fun? That's a type of play, imaginative play, thinking about things. But here's the cool part, is that can actually lead to innovation in certain industries. If you're in an industry that says, well, wait, we've got a problem or an issue that we're trying to solve and we need to come at it from a different direction, play is the way to go. I think Einstein said that play is the highest form of research. And if you play, it completely opens up your mind to new possibilities. So one of the things that I've helped organizations with is, how do we innovate to change with the times? And we'll say, all right, let's start with play. Because if you play, it opens up different neural pathways in your brain. It releases dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, the team building chemicals of humanity. And it allows us to work together as a group. And, Napoleon Hill, 2 minds together makes a third more powerful mind. Hello, what happens if we put 30 or 40 minds together on a single topic and say, what can we do? It's amazing what you can come up with. You can do 10 impossible things a day with that many people. We just got to open it up and say, it's okay to fail. Great, let's fail a lot together. Let's have fun doing it, and let's make it a game. And then all of a sudden you win. It's brilliant. It's a great way to actually do things. I
love it. I love it, Geoff. You're failing your way to success, because failure is just feedback. And like Alice in Wonderland, I want to do how many impossible things today. I love that. So how did you have this awareness? How did you start bringing games in and getting people excited to play games? Because I'm sure you got resistance of people saying, we're going to be innovative by playing games. We don't have time for that.
Right. That's the biggest hurdle I face is that. It's, I've always been big on play. I mean, I grew up, my grandparents had a resort. And so in the summertime, we'd go over and we lived at the resort. We lived on the beach and we helped people. So we learned customer service skills, but everything was playful because everybody came there to relax. And
Yeah.
so I spent my childhood, I had a playground. And when I think of play and fun, I immediately think of the merry-go-round. Like the merry-go-round was my favorite toy. I'd put kids on there, my siblings, and it was like you play King of the Mountain on a merry-go-round, you know, trying to get it going at Mach 27 to see how many people could fly off. You know, they're illegal now. Yeah, there's a reason. But oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And we learned all about, you know, how to get along and how to take care of each other. And hey, is this a real emergency or can we solve the problem ourselves? We became
Yeah.
thinkers, and play helped us get there. But I carried that through high school and into college. And I started off in education. I was a kindergarten teacher. Can you imagine? Terrifying. Kids screamed
Oh
and had
no,
accidents.
I'm sure they loved you. I'm sure they
Oh,
loved you.
it was amazing, but I had a play-based classroom. And
Yeah.
the cool thing is that, you know, when we start off, you have to do assessments, obviously. So I
Yeah.
liken a lot of things to school. So with kindergarten, we start off with assessments. Say, hey, where are you at? Where are we going to go? How are we
Yeah.
going to get there? Okay, cool. You've never held a pencil before. All right, you've got a little further to go than somebody who's already writing at a first grade level. But
Yeah.
I've got those two kids in class. How do I get them to work together? And how do I create a curriculum that helps everybody?
Yeah.
And we used play. We would use play to learn together. And I mean, it was amazing the things that can happen with like 5-year-olds. I mean, my 5-year-old class, I had, I think between I had 2 half-day kindergarten classes. I had 48 students, almost 50 kids, and they could line up in alphabetical order in less than 30 seconds because we
Wow.
made it a game. You
Yeah.
know, we'd walk down the hallway in perfect silence in a perfect row, and teachers would look at us like, how did you get kids to do that? I said, we practiced and we had fun, and we had a reward system where you got rewarded for doing things well, and you
Yes.
got rewarded for failing. Guess what? You guys failed, but now what? We're going to do it again. We're going to knock a whole second off our time. Ready? On your marks, get set, go. You know, and the kids enjoyed it. And then I took that through from education into the bigger speaking world. And it's been so much fun to watch people react to play because everybody wants to have fun. Everybody wants to have connection. It's human nature. I think it's that play is one of the things that helped us get to the top of the food chain because it created relationships. And that's how we've become the apex species on the planet. I mean, it's not like we're the biggest and strongest. It's 15 degrees outside right now and it's cold. It doesn't work well it's not conducive for humans. We had to learn to huddle together. It was a lot easier to huddle together with people you liked.
Yeah.
So I think that's where play came from. And now it's, for me, it's part of my everyday life. I mean, every single day I do something that's playful, whether that's taking my boys to school or hiking up in the mountains or actually playing tag or speaking with groups or planning on speaking with groups. It all involves play. It's just the way I operate now.
Oh, you drop so much wisdom there. That is so good. I love that. The origins of play and how it created stronger relationships, made us want to hang out together and have fun. I mean, you really unpack the whole secret to motivation and to long-term success is you make it fun. You associate massive amounts of pleasure to the things that you're doing. And what most people do is they do the exact opposite, right? Mm-hmm. They attach a whole bunch of struggle to the idea of success and or achieving goals. And that's why it feels like a struggle and why people procrastinate and put things off. And then they never get the reward. They only get more of the struggle. And so you're coming across in a whole new way saying, no, we're going to have fun the whole way through. And even when we fail, we're going to fail forward and have fun doing that. And that's a whole different mindset. And I'm sure that people, so how do you get them over the resistance?
That, you know, it was funny because I just talked to a group last week. Last week I was in California and I was working with schools and administrators. And oh my goodness, they were going through a transition. And you could just pick out every single administrator. Why? Because they were all like just stone-faced, not having fun. They were miserable. And I called them on it. I was like, hey, you guys seem really miserable. I know this is a transition period, but if you look at the play, what happens when we play together? Joy, laughter. Like, honestly, I don't want to be around you people because you look terrible. You look miserable. You look mean. And I shouldn't have probably said that to a superintendent of a large school district, but
I get it. I've done it too. It's sometimes just a dose of the truth.
right. And they were just miserable. They didn't like what they were doing. You could tell. And I said, hey, come in, watch us play. Let us have some fun. Come and enjoy us. Only one of them showed up. Only one of them actually came over and said, okay, we'll watch that. Yeah. One of them came and showed up, and they ended up staying the whole day. And they're like, oh my gosh, can you do this for like our administrative staff? Like the entire district, we could do this for. And I was like, I would love to. And I said, how do we do that? Well, here's how I approach it with them. What does it cost you to find a new teacher? How much money does it cost to get a new administrator? Yeah. I have a friend who's an administrator in a small district, a rural district in Washington. And I asked him that question. He said, in his district, a rural district in Washington, he says, if I have a teacher that comes and leaves before 5 years, that costs the school district $30,000 to $40,000 if they don't stay longer than 5 years. Yeah. And I said, what's your turnover rate? And he says, well, we have about 10% turnover per year in teachers. And he goes, some of that's retirement, but a lot of that is just new teachers washing out because they can't make it. And I said, wow. So how many hundreds of thousands of dollars does that cost the school district, over the course of a 2 to 3, 4, 5 year period? I said, what if you could get enough teachers that actually stayed in for that period of time? Yes, you're going to lose some to retirement, but those new teachers are going to come and they're going to stay for not just 4 or 5 or 6 years, but they're going to stay for 10, 20, 30 years. Yeah. What would that do? How much more money could you put into the classroom? How much money could you put into the teachers' budgets to actually teach kids versus we're just trying to hire somebody to come in and do a job for a little bit and we know that they're going to leave. Yeah. So that aspect of what does employee turnover cost? If employees are disengaged, they don't feel like they're welcome. They don't feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. They don't feel fulfillment. Yeah. They don't feel happiness or joy at work. Yeah. There's a shelf life and they're not going to stick around for as long. But if we can, as managers, CEOs, executives, whatever it is you do, if we can provide just a small dose of that dopamine hit in the brain from fun and excitement in the day, like, hey, welcome to work. I'm so glad you're here. High five. Hey, what do you got going today? That simple little action can change somebody's perspective of I have to go to work to I get to go to work. Yeah. And that change, have to get to, is immense. That'll save companies hundreds of thousands of dollars right there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Every organization has a culture, but very few organizations have intentionally built it.
Correct.
Correct. And so usually, it's not the culture that you want. And so to go in and have that mind shift of I have to versus I get to is a whole different thing. If you go into a culture and you love it and you are fine, especially when we're talking about educators, right? If you're able to go into a classroom and it's a joyful experience and you feel like you're getting something out of it and you're able to actually teach instead of spending the entire time with discipline, I mean, it changes the game. Yeah. And most people just don't know how to do that anymore. And they're not really teaching how to take charge, through the education that they get. And so unless you have someone like you who comes in and teaches them how to do this, most people just scramble and people either just kind of shut down and just get through the job. A lot will stop and quit. And then there'll be those few who get it, you know? And so, the fact that you can teach that. So how are you teaching them through your games, to do some of this stuff? Because it might seem like that's a big thing to be able to change behavior in a classroom just by, taking people, some administrators or teachers through playing tag. So how does it connect?
Oh man. So here's the thing is that sometimes there's play for play's sake, which is just the joy. And as we grow older, as we get older, the play that we do changes. Obviously, when you get older, you can afford nicer toys. So the toys become motorcycles, boats, cars, versus when you're a kid, it's a Star Wars figurine, and you have to use your imagination. Now it's actually, you get in something, right? But in the workplace, it's not always that way. In the workplace, you can use play to initiate conversation, to initiate to facilitate. I should really call it facilitation because that's what it is. It's a facilitation of a thought process of how do we change somebody's mind? Well, let's start by breaking down this barrier of, hey, we're different. Well, you're in accounting and I'm in R&D, and well, you're in sales, and well, we don't ever talk to each other except for we see each other in the lunchroom, and well, you sit at your table, you sit at yours, and you sit at here, and then you just complain about things. Well, that's a culture by default, like you said. You can have it by default or on purpose, and whichever one it is going to dictate a lot of things that happen. So if you can actually use play intentionally to break down those barriers, to show people how much more they have in common with each other, like we did at the conference. I mean, we had strangers high-fiving each other. You take a moment, you ask them a silly question, something ridiculous, they laugh, releases dopamine. Now they're smiling and engaged with each other, and they're in the moment. Now you can actually give them something to talk about that is a little bit different, maybe business focused. You know, give them your 30-second elevator pitch. Great, you got 30 seconds, go, time it. Switch, you got 30 seconds. Other person, your turn, go. And, you know, all right, give them a high five, say, that was really great. I want to find out more about that, and move to the next partner. You know, now they're like, wait a minute, I got another one? Okay, cool. And so you keep them on their toes, you keep them guessing. You give them physical activities, you give them talking activities, mental activities. I mean, it's crazy. I've done up to 7 hours of play with a group of, 20 people before. That was challenging. That was hard. Wow. 7 hours of play was really, really tough because there's only 20 of them. So movement is quick. And I mean, you got to think of like different things to do, and you can plan so much, but then you get to see, well, wait, what's the reaction? And that's where that facilitation piece comes in. Hey, this isn't working. We're going to try this. Hey, this isn't working. Now we're going to go to this. Oh, that's working. Let's take a little more time on that. That's breaking. Oh, now good stuff. This conversation is happening. And then you can facilitate well, what does that mean? Why did you say that? How does that affect us as a group? Does that affect just you, or is that everybody that affects? And so you can have all these amazing conversations based on play that you wouldn't normally have if you didn't actually have the play. Yeah. And so it's innovation and recreation and, that dopamine release, and it's the actual physical contact in a positive way that's not going to get you in trouble with HR, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the best way of doing this, because when you have people that are in a more like a peak state of mind, right, that are happier, that are laughing, that are more relaxed, like you said, get that dopamine release. When the cortisol drops and you start feeling more at ease and having fun, then you have the conversations. It creates a whole different kind of a higher caliber of conversation, because now you're in a good mood when you're having the conversation, and that allows people to be able to drop some of their guards and be honest and be more supportive and be more curious and interested. And you're right. It's through those experiences that conversations are had that would have never been able to, be possible before. And, it's exciting, this stuff. I know you've had this experience of facilitating people through some kind of activity and then saying, so what'd you learn from that? And then the stuff that comes out of it, the feedback people give you, it's like, wow, like you're writing down notes because you're like, this is going to be a book.
Oh, yeah. I'm working on that. Yeah. It's fascinating. It really is, though. It's just really cool because, you never know what I take away from things might be completely different than somebody else, depending on their frame of mind and their life experiences. But play gives you the ability to analyze things differently. And it's fascinating what somebody will come up with. You'll do something and they come up with something like that you never even saw or thought was possible. And they just had that moment right there because they're in the moment, they're actually present, and they're like open to the idea. They're open to the outcome, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of any activity is afterwards, when we start asking what you learn and how that relates to yourself, your department, your group, have other people had that experience, and then all the feedback and all the conversations that come up. I've had conversations where I was ready to go on to the next activity, and the person in charge was like, well, wait a second, let's keep talking about this, because they were so engaged. And for them, it was the highlight of the program. And that's when I started really realizing the point of everything we do is to create the conversation.
Right. Yeah, that really is. If you can create conversation, you can solve almost any problem because you are open to the conversation. Yeah. And that takes a lot of breaking down of walls. I mean, we're defensive creatures by nature because we're protective of ourselves. And then you think about the work environment where, depending on what it is and what organization you're with and your job, it could be, super happy-go-lucky and really fun, or it could be like cutthroat and you're trying to survive the day. you just never know. But in order to get to that place, you have to have something in common with somebody and the ability to tell your story to get to know someone.
Yeah. Well, I love that the tools that you're using, because play is such a great way to stimulate that conversation and get out, bring more out of people, and that, bring out more of the good, in people, or the useful or the creative. Because again, I think that, other ways that people try to get that information is just from lecturing and giving more data and dry PowerPoints and stuff like that. And, lots of being lectured to, but you and I both know it's the experiences that cause the breakthroughs, and actually going through some emotional experience is what loosens us up.
Oh yeah. And that's the cool thing though, is that you can take, like, I'm sure you've experienced this, where you've had people that have real breakthroughs through an activity where they get to an emotional. I think I was listening to one of your, I've been listening to your podcast now since after we met. I kind of downloaded all of them and been going through them. They're fascinating. They're wonderful. Thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
And I can't remember, I can't remember who was the guest. But you were talking about, one of your clients that had a breakthrough of, hey, that's not my stuff. And that's not my stuff. And that's not my stuff. And that hit me. And I was like, I thought of so many people that I know that they bring all their stuff with them.
Yeah.
And if you can get somebody to check a bag or two, that's a huge burden and lightening off their shoulders. And they go, wait a minute, I don't have to bring all my stuff with me. Here, it's a safe place. I can be who I am. I can be accepted.
Yeah.
Comfort. Oh my gosh. The things that people can do when they feel welcomed and comfortable and safe it's just amazing.
Yeah. I love how you said, if we can check a couple of bags, that's awesome.
We all got baggage.
I want to check all of them. And maybe they'll get lost, right? And then
who knows? They
that's
might
right.
send me a check for them. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So I remember one time, totally off subject, but I've moved like 7 or 8 times in the last 10 years, and so we've been in this house that we're in now the longest that we've ever been in, and we're not planning on going anywhere. But in one of our houses, every time we moved, we brought all the stuff from that house that didn't really go in the new house, and we just stuck it in the basement. When you do that a few different times, you end up with a whole bunch of junk. And my wife was like, I wish it would just get washed away, and then they'd send us a check. And 2 days later, our basement flooded. And I'm like, wow, that's some manifesting there.
That is some powerful manifesting.
That was something else. So
honey, if you could start manifesting a winning lotto ticket, just start that right now.
I know that would be something. So let me ask you this then. In your bio, it talks about how your grandfather and your father were Hall of Fame track and field coaches.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool for both of them to be that way. And so what did you learn from having that kind of experience in your life growing up?
Oh man, it was fascinating and amazing to see my dad and my grandfather coach. So my dad was an athlete of my grandfather's in high school. And then my dad and my grandfather were rival coaches. And then my grandfather retired and joined my father's coaching staff. So, I mean, they knew each other for my dad knew him for, a majority of his life. And to watch how they interacted with students and how they would get more out of their athletes was always fascinating. And so that growing up with the coaching model, literally at work all the time in my household, of asking questions of, hey, you just ran your race. I want you to go warm down, cool down for a little bit, and we're going to come back and we're going to have a conversation about it. And really saying, how did you feel? What did you do right? What did you do wrong? And what can we do better next time? Really simple questions where an athlete themselves would go, hey, you know what? I went out too fast at the start. I died at the end. I got to wait for the kick at 150. I can't go at 200 meters because I'm going to die at 50. So I got to wait just a little bit longer. But they were able to process. They actually drew out from their athletes. The athletes were the ones that said, this is what I need to do to get better. They didn't have somebody saying, hey, you know what? You went out too fast. You gotta slow down, and everybody else is, oh, okay, I guess I could do that. But watching them, my grandfather had a national champion for the discus, still has the high school national record for the discus.
Wow.
And it's just amazing that also the effect that they had on students and on people in general.
Yeah.
I've never been able to travel anywhere in the world with my dad without him meeting somebody that he knew.
Really?
Yeah, doesn't matter. Went to Mexico, first time. I've never been to Mexico before. We're in Tijuana, and from across the square we hear Otis, my dad's nickname, and all of a sudden some guy comes over and he's like, Otis, is that you? Yeah. Oh, Bobby, how you doing? Oh, there we are just having a conversation with one of his track athletes from the 70s who just happened to be there at the same time. And, and that happens everywhere we go. He's had thousands of athletes that he's affected, and he knows the athletes from other schools, and he's got his coaching staff. And I mean, it's been so cool to watch that process for my entire life, to be able to see how a human being can affect another human being in a positive manner and give people hope in that the future is better. Yeah. Like that's always been a part of our family, which is really fascinating and really fun. Now my little brother's a coach. He's a cross country and track coach. And my, twin sister was a coach in college. And I mean, so it just trickles down the line. So we continue to coach and continue to have fun.
Yeah. Family of coaches. That's extraordinary. And I love it because, sometimes people think, well, I couldn't do that, but yeah, you can. Just giving someone your time and attention, giving them hope for the future, things are going to be okay. You're going to be all right. You're going to get through this. Believing in people, being kind to one another. Anybody could make a difference for anybody else with a few kind words. And we don't give ourselves enough credit. And, or we're so mistrusting because of things that we've been through. It causes us to become what we complain about. Right. And so I love that you have this model of sitting down and supporting. It's funny, I've talked to quite a few coaches over the years that coach their son or their daughter, and they had to learn. They were telling, I just had someone in my mind last week that was telling me, they would, his daughter would go, and she's really, really good in softball, and she would go and play the game, and then they get in the car, and his first thing was, okay, now what went wrong so that we can make it better? And he wasn't realizing that every time they finished a game, he was starting off with what went wrong.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times, most of the time, I think that that's how people start off with just about everything. What's going wrong, what I don't have. Yeah. And so, just from listening to you, you're focusing on what's going right. Sure, we can figure out what we need to improve on, but what's going well? What are you doing right? And catching people doing right things well on purpose, is a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had a coaching conversation yesterday with a potential client, and that was one of the things we focused on. He was concerned about, hey, these are the things that, we're working on, but I really want them to be better. And I said, well, what's going right? What are they doing that's right? What can you recognize that's really going well so that they can go, oh, I am doing good things, and say, all right, great. Where can we get better? Let's start with the positive, and then say, what can we work on? And then slowly eliminate the negative, But if you start with the negative, they're going to start thinking negatively immediately, and it's harder to pull out the positive.
Yeah. So you are the master of play. And so
the Playmeister.
The Playmeister, yes. And so I've seen it firsthand. One of my favorite activities that I had never seen before was when you had us walking around, and then all of a sudden we had a 4-way thumb wrestle with 4 different people, and the thumb wrestles all in there at the same time. I thought that was amazing. I couldn't wait to take that home and play games with my family because, we talk a lot about what we're doing at work or what we're doing in our personal life. But I think that playing games with our family is huge, and we don't do it. We get tired. We sit on the couch. We're with our laptops. Everybody's on their smartphones these days. So do you have a couple of games that might be fun to play when you're with your family or with a small group of people, maybe in your own department?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So there's the Thumb Wars. Thumb Wars is easy. Remember 1, 2, 3, 4, I declare a thumb war. And I like to play it multiple ways. So you can play right hand first, then left hand, then both hands. And then you can do the 4-person thumb war, which is where you take your hand, you put all your fingertips together in the center, like just like this, and then you slowly start to curl your hand around, and then you've got 4 people going at the same time.
Yes.
You can do team thumb wars, your team versus another team, 2-on-2 with 4 people connected. I love, oh, hi, there's my cat.
That's awesome.
He's just friendly there. My dog.
Just like a cat. Just like a cat. Walk right in front. I'm here.
Here I am. I'm beautiful. Love me. Thanks, cat. Okay. That's Allie cat, by the way. Allie. She's
Allie.
Oh my gosh. She loves, I think actually on virtually every podcast I've been on, her or my dog have made an appearance somehow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for them.
So that's one. Another one, this one, if you can call it out, if you have a game meister, so take your hand, put out just like that, take the other hand, make a pointer finger, and you put it in your partner's hand. Oh, yes. And so then you can call out go. Anytime you say go, you're trying to get your finger to safety and at the same time capture your partner's finger. Yes. That one's called gotcha. I like gotcha. Yes. That's a really fun one. And then let me see here. For office spaces, if you have it sounds weird, but a ping pong ball, I'm trying to see if I have one just lying around here. A ping pong ball and a water bottle. Okay. If you take an empty water bottle and you put the ping pong ball on top. Yes. And you get about 10 feet away and you have to lock out your elbow. So elbow's got to be locked out and your hand is up and down. And your job is to walk past the ping pong ball and flick it off with your finger. Just flick it. Just like that. Huh. Seems easy. Yeah. Seems real easy. But the trick is this. You can't slow down. You can't like, whoa, stop. There's no stopping. You got to walk through a little faster than your normal walking pace. And the trick is this, is that if you hit the ping pong ball, it goes flying. It just goes whoosh, which is great. And everybody gets excited and you win. Yes. But if you hit the lid, you got to know that there's a little zing that goes through your fingernail and it doesn't feel great. So with that, you then give the team or 3 or 4 people, however many, you just get them going you just get them going as fast as they can. Try and flick the water bottle off. Every time they flick the ping pong ball off, the water bottle stays put. They get a point. Yeah. You would think it's again, absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Wonderful. Another one, depending on how many people you have that I've played before is it's rock, paper, scissors. Yes. Okay. But it's a little different in that you end up having a champion. So rock, paper, scissors. You play rock, paper, scissors. If you and I play, let's say you win, I now become your cheerleader. I have to follow you around and I cheer you on as you challenge somebody else. If you play somebody else, they've got a cheerleader as well. You beat them. Those 2 people now come around and they become your cheerleaders and we're your entourage. And it's amazing. The thing that happens is all of a sudden you've got, I play this with, upwards of 500 people. You get down to 2 teams. You get down to 2 individuals and they've got all these people cheering for them behind them like, yeah! You'd think we were gladiators. And here they are playing rock, paper, scissors to see who's the best rock, paper, scissors champion that day. Oh, and it's all about support. And it's just great. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. Oh my gosh. If you have breath mints, a ping pong ball, and some straws. I know straws are very politically incorrect right now. I'm so sorry, but straws are amazing things. Straws, ping pong ball, and some breath mints. And you get everybody a straw, and you sit around a table before a meeting. Give everybody a breath mint, put the ping pong ball in the middle, and then they play. Basically, it's foosball with a straw, and you're just trying to blow the ball off the other side of the table. Your team versus the other team. Hilarious. But you got to make sure people are sitting down because I have seen people get a little lightheaded. I mean, you give adults the moment to play, and we talk about you can talk about all sorts of things that come from those moments of play. With your family, we play Would You Rather, and we give each other impossible gross things. Yes, yes. If you could be any superhero, would you be this one or this one? If you could be any political figure, would you be this one or this one? If you could talk to anybody in the history of the entire world, alive or dead, who would you talk to? This one or this one? If you had to pick a superpower, if you had to be a super villain, if you had to be a Disney princess for a day, which one would you be? By the way, the answer is Princess Leia. just so you know.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, those are all just little things that you can do in your office, in your workplace. I love it. I mean, they're so much fun. On my Facebook page, I have a Facebook group where I try and post an activity every week of something you can do in the office.
Yeah.
Just to have fun. Here you go. It's a challenge every week. It should take you less than 5 minutes. Have fun with it. Enjoy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So those are really good ideas. Let me share one with you that I just heard. So
Okay.
I just heard it from my son had attended a leadership program, and there was a guy that was taking him through games. And I always wondered how you get a group of, so he said there was about 60 to 80 people in the room, and just one facilitator. So before I tell you about his game and so maybe you've heard of it before, maybe you can add it to your repertoire. How do you control a group of 500 when there's just you?
That is a great question. And I think part of it stemmed from education and very clear, concise directions.
Okay.
If you can give a direction to a 5-year-old and they can understand it, you should be able to give a direction to a high schooler to understand it and a business person to understand it. If it has to be in the simplest, easiest terms to follow so that everybody can go, oh, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
And that, and you have to be engaging. Oh my gosh, you are the mesmerizing podcast. You have to be mesmerizing. They have to go, oh, because an average kid nowadays has a attention span of 9 seconds, which is that of a goldfish.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
so what
I'll
was the
tell
activity?
you, they have the attention span of a goldfish if it's not interesting.
Correct.
So just like you said, because those same kids will sit there on YouTube for hours watching somebody else play a video game.
I don't get that.
Yeah, well, it comes back to what you said earlier. If they're having fun, if they're associating pleasure to it, they have plenty of attention span.
Yes,
they're just bored quickly with things that aren't interesting to them.
Very true.
So, yeah. And so the fact that you can command an audience of kids, I did a middle school and then a couple of high school groups one time for a talk. And that is a whole other beat. I have nothing but admiration for you to be able to do that because I wasn't very good at it. I realized that I had a hard time dumbing it down. And I thought that'd be easy because I'm not, never felt like I was the smartest or sharpest tool in the shed to begin with. And it was really challenging. And it takes it takes someone who has real genius in that area. And so, good for you. You're amazing. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So here's this. So Ted Weiss is his name. I've never met him, but I'm plugging him anyway. He has a great, it's just, I know that you and I would love him because of I can tell already because 1, he loves playing games. 2, my son really adored him, which, makes me want to meet him. And he lives in the same town as me. And then his website was heartedtalk.com.
Brilliant.
Guy's creative, right? So anyway, so he says that that you get into a group and there's 4 characters. You're going to be an egg, you're going to be a chicken, you're going to be a dinosaur, and you're going to be a leader. Have you heard of this before? You have?
Evolution tag.
Evolution tag. Yeah. So I'll make it short then for anybody that hasn't heard this. So everybody, the goal is to become a leader. And how do you become a leader? By playing rock, paper, scissors, right?
Yep.
And everybody starts out as an egg. And if you win, you advance up. And if you lose, you drop back down. But if you're a leader, then you get to stay a leader. And then, you play for a little while. And the goal is everybody's supposed to be a leader. And at the end, turns out that there's only a percentage of leaders, a percentage of dinosaurs, a percentage of chickens and eggs. Right. And then they're like, well, how come everybody isn't a leader? And the point is that when you're a leader, you can't go back. So your goal should be to kind of lose on purpose or strategize with other people to show them how they can rise up the levels and become a leader as well. And the point ends up being that, are you going through your day building other leaders or giving excuses for why you can't? And most people go through life, they're not doing it. They're not aware of it. They don't think that's their job. They're afraid you're going to steal my job, right? And we're not building other leaders around us.
Yeah, it's so true. I've played that before. And oh my goodness, I haven't talked about that concept. I've always talked about, well, what did it take to get there? And did you help other people? Which is the same way, just a different way of saying it. How do we get more people to be leaders?
Yeah.
And, that's, you know, a lot of times if you play that with middle school students, they don't quite understand the concept yet. High school students, they start to get it. They go, oh, why didn't I think of that? And then you give them another chance. You say, well, let's try this one. And then you can play a different way.
Yeah.
And so then they can go, oh, okay, I got it. It's just fascinating, the things that come from rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
You know, any different, you know, strategy to, you know, leadership to, are we helping each other out? Hey, did you lose on purpose to give somebody a win? I actually saw that this week. It wasn't necessarily losing on purpose, but it was a true leader situation. I worked with high schoolers in a big conference. I had about 300 of them. And I had a couple of students with obvious special needs. And you know what? I had a couple leaders. I said, hey, you need to go find a partner. And some of those kids just kind of stood there like, well, who wants to be my partner? And I just had leaders walk out right up to him and be like, you're mine. I'm so excited to be here. And I went, okay, that's awesome. And then, you know, play tag and they have conversations that they did brilliantly at, because they had somebody say, you're valuable. You're worth it.
Yeah.
And went, hey, can I call out some awesome leader qualities right now, people? How did you pick your first partner? Did you just find the closest person, or did you actually go out and look for somebody that needed it? You know? Wow. And so, yeah, so it's just brilliant what can happen, what can come from play and the leadership abilities. It's just so cool.
It gives me chills. I mean, that's an amazing story. And, I mean, those are the most special leaders on the planet, are the ones that walk up and make somebody feel like they matter. I mean, that's a huge, you know, I just want to go give them a big hug, you know, right away. And because it's so powerful, and the impact that it makes. So I also love it. I want to review it real quick, I guess is the word I want to say, because what you said was so important. Once they go through the exercise, especially teenagers, then you give them the ability to go through it again so that they can have the experience of winning, right? Instead of just, well, if you didn't do it right, maybe next time. Now we're going to go through a different variation, apply what you've learned, and let's make it work this time. So I have another example of that. So I have this maze game where I take people through, and all you need is some tape, right? And I make these little grids, you know, and then have a little map that they got to go through, right? Little landmines that they can't walk through, and they got to get to the other side. And then the goal is for them to help each other. They can't speak, but they can point and stuff. And then people, usually a handful of people, will step up and start pointing and help people out. But even when people are pointing, there will still be some going through the maze, still standing and staring at their own shoes because they're not trusting anybody else, right? They got obvious feedback, people that will help, and they're still just focused on sabotaging. And so we talk about, how did you help? It's the same people that are always stepping up. Were you just kind of in the background? Or were you in front and you were so loud you weren't allowing anybody else to do this, right? And so you have the different ways of teaching. And then we go through it again. And this time we make everybody go through it backwards. And they can only rely on their team to get through it. And people get through it lightning fast, most of them, because now they're relying on the team. The teams, you see 10 people going this way, you know, but without talking, you know, and just back and forth and gesturing. And people get through it in half the time. And and it's just so inspiring. All the high fives, all the laughter, and all the big time insights.
And then imagine the conversations you have after that about leadership, about our team, about how can we help each other? How is the most effective way to help each other? Yeah. You know, you can have an hour and a half long, 2-hour conversation based on an activity that takes 15 or 20 minutes. Yes. That it can change the entire culture of, hey, when you did this, when you were yelling and shouting and screaming at me, I didn't like that. But when you just looked at me in the eye and very calmly just said, back, go back, one spot, go back, right? That's how, okay, wait, that's maybe now I need to react to you in the office. I can't come at you full energy like, hey, I've had 12 cups of coffee. Ah! You know, you can learn how to communicate effectively with people based on how they like feedback. And you can learn that from an activity like, you know, a maze. It's, again, amazing. Pun intended.
Amazing. Absolutely. Yeah, you're exactly right, Geoff, because I mean, you could spend all day trying to have a conversation that would not amount to what you would get from doing a 15-minute, you know, play scenario and going through a game like that, because you got to have the emotional experience. You got to have the stress, the frustration, and then the aha moments, and then the reflection, and then the, oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the feedback that everybody else is giving that's making you learn so quickly that it alters the entire course of the conversation that you have, which is why it's so effective. And the most successful teams and organizations in the world are using it. So, wow, this has been amazing. All right, I got a question for you, and I'm curious to see what your answer is going to be to this. I ask everybody.
Okay.
If you could go back based on all the things that you've learned and all the wisdom that you have gained over the years, if you could go back and talk to your 7-year-old you, what advice would you give him about life?
Oh, man. Jeez, 7-year-old me. I'm trying to think. I was in 2nd grade. Miss McLachlan here. Barely had a beard at that time. Barely. Just a scruff at that point. Oh, man. 2nd grade. I remember 2nd grade very vividly because she was one of my favorite teachers. And she helped, really, Miss McIlvaine helped me to discover the joy of learning. She was one of the most engaging people. And I think that going back, of all the things that I would have done now, I would tell myself to listen more and talk less.
Yeah. That's wise advice. Listen more, talk less. I mean, you already know what you're going to say anyway. You know, it's curious as what others are going to say. You know, when you said went back to your 2nd grade teacher, that made me go back to mine, Mrs. Grunland, which is weird because I haven't remembered her name forever. But it made me start thinking about the teachers in my life, and most of them were boring, you know, and some of them were just angry and bitter. And there was one who was very strict, and she was trying to teach us about atoms and how things came together and cell structures and all these things. And the whole class was struggling to understand it. And I remember it looked like she flipped out, but I think she had a moment of genius because she took this model and she started slamming things together and throwing pieces in the air. And it was crazy. She was just showing us what it would look like to have these reactions in the body with this model that she ended up destroying in a million pieces. And it was the best thing I ever saw. We loved it. We understood it. We got it. You know, that happened 40 years ago. I'm still talking about it right now. Right. I mean, that was pretty amazing. And so I think that, you know, your message of bringing play into our adult life and the power of it is extraordinary. So how can people learn more about you and get you to their events and how can they consume more of you, Geoff?
Awesome. Well, I am on Facebook and LinkedIn. Facebook, Professionals at Play. And then I have a group that I'm more than welcoming people in if you want to be a part of it. That is Professionals at Play Group. Yes. I think that's the name of it. You know, Professionals at Play, that's what I do. Yes. And then LinkedIn is Geoff Mclachlan. That's Geoff McLachlan, McLachlan. Got to make sure that's the way it's spelled. Sarah McLachlan, apparently a distant cousin or something like that. And then, never met her though, never met her. And then I'm starting a YouTube channel. I'm still trying to work out that whole, how do you make it open and available to the public? The last time I made a video, I thought I broke YouTube because it said, sorry, YouTube is broken. And I went, oh, great. Okay, cool. I broke YouTube. Great. People are going to be so mad at me right now. Oh my gosh. Don't tell people where I live.
That's funny.
Or they can go to professionalsatplay.com and contact me through the website. And I try to get back to people within 24 hours, although sometimes I'm on the road and it takes me a day or two, but we'll get back to everybody. We always try and contact everybody as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah, well, you're in demand, right? And so you got people have to have a little bit of patience because, you know, everybody wants you. And so we'll definitely have all those links in the show notes, professionalsatplay.com. Definitely check that out. And then, you know, Geoff has a lot of cool new books, materials that are coming out. He's got some pretty amazing ebooks and other stuff that I would join that Facebook group that you have, Professionals at Play. I'm doing all of that. I love your stuff. You know, I'm a big fan. And so I just think that, you know, what you're doing and how you're doing it is so special and so needed and so valuable. You know, you're a big glass of water in the middle of the desert. and well,
thank you.
Yeah, I love it. So, all right. Well, awesome. Is there any last nugget of wisdom you want to leave with our mesmerizing listeners?
Oh my gosh. It's the one, it's easy. It's how I try and live my life. And it's 6 words: work hard, play fair, be kind.
Yeah.
That's it. Work hard, play fair, be kind.
That's beautiful. That says it all. Geoff, thanks so much for being a part of this program today. You are absolutely mesmerizing.
Tim, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love the work you do, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. And everybody that's been listening, oh my gosh, I hope you got some really good things. You better go home tonight and have some thumb wars, because this is awesome, right? So make sure that you're playing, you're having fun. Share this episode with your friends at work and start thinking about how you can bring more play into your day, and it will allow you to feel mesmerizing. So thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Make today a sure success, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, it's Tim Shurr. Would you like to learn my best secrets for how to be mesmerizing? Then head over to www.survivingtothriving.me and download a free copy of my Mesmerizing Mindset Secrets. That's www.survivingtothriving.me. I'll see you there.